Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the very first edition of the Road to Indy Insider here on my Road to Indy Insider Facebook page. My name is Rob Howden, of course, the voice of the Road to Indy, presented by Cooper Tires. Something brand new after spending a bunch of days doing IG Live interviews. Those were a ton of fun, talking to so many of the drivers throughout the paddock. But this is something brand new, obviously trying to work with the new evolution of what we're able to provide here. And of course, the Road to Indy getting ready to go in a couple of weeks at Road America, a test this coming Monday at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course as well. But there's a ton to kind of go through, because obviously the recent announcement that Indy Lights would not be back here in 2020 would instead be kind of postponed. The season canceled until 2021. Lots to talk about there. Drivers moving around, teams moving around. So I figured I'd bring in one guy that I know that is up to date on everything that happens. One of my good friends, Steve Wittich. Let me bring Steve in here to the broadcast. Boom. Steve, how are you, my friend?
Good. How are you, Rob? Thanks for having me on.
I'm good. I kind of feel like Jerry Todd from SCTV, you know, working on the video. That's an old school reference.
Oh, that's awesome.
Get.
Yeah. No. If they're under the age of 50, they probably
50 and not Canadian.
Yeah.
Anyway, Steve, great to have you with us here in the very first edition of the Road to Indy Insider Live. First and foremost, man, just a kind of a ton going on in terms of what happened during the COVID-19 shutdown. We were all down at St. Petersburg, ready to go for the opening round of the season. I went back and looked at it. It will have been 4 months almost 4 months before we get back on track.
It doesn't feel like it, but it's crazy, isn't it? It's for a while there, until we had that IndyCar race, I think I was the only person who'd actually written race or session reports for open wheel racing for a long time.
That's right,
because I got to do the few Road to Indy sessions. But yeah, it's been an interesting 4 months, to say the least. I know we'll talk about what's been going on and what the teams have been up to and the series, but yeah, it's definitely been challenging for everybody involved, including, I know, you and I, and especially the team owners. I know it's a stressful time for them.
Most definitely, because I think a lot of people don't think about this, though, right? That the team owners it's a business,
right?
For a majority of them, this is what they do for a living. It's how they pay their mortgages. It's how, and of course, a lot of them, even though it's staff, it's also family, right? These guys that they've had on their staff for so many years, and what do you do? Like, you can't
it's
test.
So tough.
It's tough, isn't it?
Right. And if you can't test and you can't, if you're not running, you can't bring any money in, and, you've got people to employ, and then like you said, you get a mortgage to pay. A lot of these team owners in Road to Indy this is it. This is how they make their living. So, it's tough. It's, it's necessary. It's definitely important to get back to racing for these guys, because they've got no income coming in.
That's whatsoever. It. I was talking to someone online. I won't say who it was, but the detail of essentially what it is to be a team owner in the Road to Indy or any kind of racing industry. This guy said he has nothing but respect for guys who make a living doing this. Right. I thought it was like, because the next line is, it's a super brutal business model, super high operational costs, low margin, tiny and highly fickle customer base.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Wow, what that is absolutely the motorsports team ownership in a nutshell, right?
It's definitely has to be a passion for you to stay in it, because it's certainly not easy for them. I know that. It's you're working your tail off to, none of these guys are getting rich doing this. Look at it that way. It has to be a love affair, and you have to love doing it and love working with the kids and love the lifestyle. It's not easy, and I feel bad for the team owners.
Well, and the funny thing is, for most of the series, at the end of a day, after a race day, you got one happy customer,
exactly,
and 3 or 4 unhappy customers, even though they could be all in the top 10.
Yeah, no, that's exactly true.
Steve, let's jump first and foremost, I guess, into the big elephant in the room, and that is the loss of Indy Lights for 2020. When that first came down, I don't want to say that I was overly surprised, only knowing that we had a short grid and there was a potential to lose a couple of drivers. But then I'm hearing potentially we weren't going to lose as many drivers as we thought. But the bottom line is they've decided to shelve it for 2020, come back in 2021. I think the one caveat or the one soft spot, the positive, was the fact that Roger Penske did state, both verbally and in writing as well, that he's very intent on making sure Indy Lights is strong moving into the future.
Yeah, I think it's important that he stepped up and made it sure that people understand, because when we first broke that news, it was, everyone's, oh, that's it, the series is dead. And it was important for Roger to come in and say, hey, listen, we need this series, and we do need the series. I know they're working through a million different ideas to make it stronger, and it just didn't make any sense this year. It just, and it don't get me wrong, 5, 6, 7 car grids don't look great, but it also was just, with what's going on and what you're going to see in the schedules in the future, it just, Indy Lights kind of had the biggest schedule or the biggest parts of each schedule from the road to Indy each weekend at the number of minutes. And I think they're going to try and get stuff spread out, and it just makes it a lot easier with the one less series to run right now. Unfortunately, they're probably got the loser's end of the stick because it's the smallest grid.
And the interesting thing too, let's look to 2021, because let's say that some stuff does happen IndyCar wise with Roger Penske and his crew there. They decide to make they make some changes. They do some things to support the teams, existing teams, make it easier for drivers, potentially do whatever they can to support cash wise would be great.
Yeah.
It does bode well potentially for the future. David does it. Steve does it not, with the fact that now we have, Kyle Kirkwood won the championship in Indy Pro 2000 last year, so he's a scholarship driver.
Yep, and he's absolutely coming back, is what I've been told.
He's coming back, and we'll go through. That's what we're going to do, folks. We'll kind of go through and tell you through this series, the different series, what we've learned from the drivers we've talked to. But Kirkwood's coming back. He told me he's coming back. You're going to have the champion of the Formula Regional Championship, America's Championship, coming over as well.
Right. Yep.
How many other drivers from there potentially look over? Because that program has kind of converged the F4 and the Formula Regional America program over to Indy Lights as well. So we could potentially see some more drivers coming in there, maybe 12 to 14 next year in 2021.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me in the least. No. You've got a lot of experienced guys over there in Formula Regional Americas, and it's going to be an interesting grid. And then you've got whoever wins Indy Pro 2000 this year will be a scholarship. So you're going to have 3 guys next year that were championship winners in a series. As a foundation, it's not going to get much better than that. No. Definitely not. The teams will be fighting for those guys. But yeah, like you said, if you can get some IndyCar team involvement, and it doesn't even need to be ownership, it just needs to be partnership, or just, there's a million different ways it can help. I always look at Andretti, sort of what their model as the way to do it. And maybe this is how, IndyCar teams can help Road to Indy and Indy Lights teams. Because you look at Andretti is attractive to drivers. Yeah, they've won and they're good, but they also have a hospitality where you can bring your sponsor and, oh, wait, you're eating lunch with your sponsor, and there's Mario Andretti who might come over, or Michael Andretti. And, they're the only ones right now that have that opportunity to provide to a sponsor. It's tough getting sponsorship in the Road to Indy, and just that sometimes just the little things, that chance to network is huge. So, I could see, hey, let's partner these Indy Lights teams up with, an IndyCar team where the hospitality can get used.
That's a great point.
Right? Like it's huge. It's absolutely huge.
So, and this has happened in the past before as well with Dan Anderson when he had his own team, right?
Right.
The Anderson Racing team connected with Ray Hall at Atlanta.
Yeah.
Ray Hall at that point with Mara Romancini and Andrew Prendeville and a couple of different guys. So they obviously work together. So I think one of the interesting things, and you brought it up, if you're with Andretti, your sponsors, of course, you're always trying to bring a deliverable to a sponsor, right?
Right.
What can I do? What can make it worthwhile? Obviously, with Indy Lights, it's not all about being on TV or NBC Sports Gold, but it's business to business. So you bring a client to the racetrack when you're with Andretti, and you're sitting down potentially having lunch or a drink, whatever it may be, with Mario Andretti, right? And the same goes for if a team would connect with Rahal again. You've got Bobby Rahal right there. To sit down with Bobby Rahal, whatever it may be. Or any of the IndyCar drivers as well. So yeah, I think I like that. And I like potential commercial opportunities as well.
Yeah, I do too. I think there's a chance for, like you mentioned, business to business is everything right now in racing. Huge. And there's a chance, for these Indy Light sponsors, maybe you have every second event, you have a get together where you bring the sponsors from every series together so that, they can talk.
Yeah.
Cause that's sort of the way part of the way sponsorship works now is you use it to entertain customers, but the sponsors are going to try and get the other sponsors to buy their services too, because that's always been important, right? Like that's
a B2B mixer.
I don't think people, right. I don't think people understand that, there are companies in IndyCar who are there because they want to do business with, let's say, Verizon, who's a sponsor of somebody, or right. Like that's sort of the hope that there's that hope that you can connect two companies together, and then they go, hey, well, you saved us this amount of dollars. We'll spend half your savings back on racing, right? That's how these deals work. One day we should do a whole show on, just the way sponsorship deals work. It's pretty wild sometimes.
I think it's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, it's fascinating to find out how some deals come together. But yeah, no, it'd be nice to have every IndyCar team start an Indy Lights team, but that's going to be hard to do. But I think you'll have different varying ways that they can get involved. And it's that involvement. It's huge. It brings that little bit more legitimacy to Indy Lights.
Agreed. Let's have a look at the Indy Lights grid that we were going to have. And I think I reached out to a bunch of people. Steve, I know you've done the same thing.
Yep.
We talked about Kyle Kirkwood. I spoke with Kyle, I messaged with him today. He will continue to test with the team when available, but he's also going to potentially try to run a couple of LMP3 races. He's done that before. So I think he's probably just thinking about trying to get some seat time to kind of just bide his time to make sure he's still fresh when he gets to go racing next year.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard from him and his management, is that you'll see him a little bit in car in some form of racing, but not a ton. But they do want to do as much testing as they can, just because that's huge to keep himself. Like, he's got to keep fresh in an Indy Lights car.
Let's be real. He's still a rookie.
Right.
So he needs the seat time.
He is. He does. He definitely needs a seat time, and it's tough. He's probably the one that loses the most out of all this, is because he was hot driver. He's the hottest driver in the world, really, right? And he now he has to sit for a season. But testing is good. I think staying in race shape, doing some LMP3 stuff, and whatever else he can get into is also good. I expect him to show up in a few spots once we get things headed out.
Yeah,
started.
I also think
open wheel, but
they also don't tell us everything.
No, oh God, no. I don't expect him to either, right?
He'll show up at a race we had no idea about.
Yeah.
I messaged with Robert McGinnis as well, a little different than Kirkwood. It's not like he has to spend a ton of time testing the Lights car, because he has a full season of Lights experience already as a race winner, of course, at Indy on the road course. He told me that he's kind of looking to IMSA, potentially, the GTD category. He wants to get some seat time as well, but like all these drivers, especially at this level of competition, Steve, it's all about having the money, right? You had a budget for this year, but the budget was focused on Indy, Indy Lights, potentially a lot of it on the Freedom 100 or whatever it may be, right?
Right.
So you can't just take that money and throw it somewhere else.
No, it's not the way it works. And, the sponsors, you can't blame a partner or sponsor for backing it down a little bit. And it doesn't take much. They could say, oh, we could spend 75% of what we're going to spend. Well, there goes your budget for Indy Light, right? So, sometimes it might be better in this situation where a driver can say, hey, can you put even 25% of what you're going to spend this year, squirrel it away aside, and, then next year we'll come back and you only have to spend 75%, right?
Yep.
Like there's going to be drivers and partners move stuff around like that makes the most sense and the easiest way for, a sponsor to show that they're going to get some return on investment. And you never know, Rob might end up doing, some stuff with his partners. He's awfully good on social media, giving them credit. And, I could see him working with his partners to help them with other stuff. There'll be other opportunities for him to help them.
Indeed. Getting started here right now with Andretti Autosport as we kind of give you guys a little bit of insight on where these drivers are going, seeing as they're not going to be driving Indy Lights this year. I did reach out to Tristan Charpentier as well. He was planning on running some races with Andretti Autosport. He told me his focus is still on 2021, coming back for Indy Lights. So I think that's a pretty big positive, Steve, to have a rookie driver who really had not been in the program, not even in the road to Indy yet, was coming over with Andretti and still remains focused on 2021. I think that's a really good note for the guys at Anderson Promotions to take home.
Yeah, I do too. It's I think he moved to the U.S., didn't he? I think he might be living in Miami now. And
I didn't actually ask that question.
It's clear that he wants to run Indy Lights, and it's good to see someone have patience too, right? I know that, these guys get pushed up and pushed up and pushed up, but we're talking about 20, 21, 22-year-olds here, right? This is not the end of a career, right? Like, it sucks that there's a season they're not going to get to drive Indy Lights, but it'll come back, and they'll be better off for it.
I agree. Now, one of the things we will talk about a little bit, as we're going down through the order alphabetically through their teams, let's talk about Daniel Frost, who, of course, a couple of good years with Exclusive Autosport, was a race winner 2 times last year in Indy Pro 2000, making the jump to Indy Lights this year. With no Indy Lights, he's going to go double duty. He's actually, this is interesting. He's so Andretti has picked up a Formula Regional Americas car, which is essentially the F3 car of that latter program. They're actually racing this weekend at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, and there are a number of drivers we'll talk about who are part of the Road to Indy who are running Mid-Ohio this weekend. So Daniel Frost will run with Andretti. I think a single car effort at Mid-Ohio for Andretti, but he's also going to be with Turn 3 Motorsport, Peter Dempsey's program, in Indy Pro 2000 car. So he comes back to Indy Pro as well. Man, this is a storyline in and of itself.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's going to be interesting to see how much this. It's actually, for Daniel, I think it's fantastic. That's a kid. I think he's got a lot of talent and he's fast, but he needed seat time, and this is going to give him a lot of seat time and in 2 different cars in a very short period of time. And Daniel, I think Andretti's a great spot for him, but I honestly, having someone like Peter Dempsey work with Daniel is going to be very interesting. Daniel probably needed to get a little bit more aggressive and, just lay it all out on the line a little bit more. And there's nobody better than getting that out of a driver than Peter. Peter was awfully good at it himself, and he seems to be able to get the most out of a driver. So I think it's actually a really good move for him.
If there's a guy that's actually going to benefit from this whole thing, as you said, you said it straight up. He did a couple of races, I think 2 or 3 weekends in USF 2000 with Exclusive Autosport. He probably could have came back last year in USF 2000 and been a championship contender. They move him to Indy Pro 2000 with Exclusive Autosport, and of course, a great team. He ends up winning 2 races, right? He won the Oval at Lucas Oil Raceway, and then he won on the streets of Toronto as well, so 2 different disciplines. And then he goes right to Indy Lights. He could have stayed in Indy Pro and tried to win the championship there. So this is really, it's actually holding him back and giving him so much more experience before he makes his debut in Indy Lights. It's actually, I hate to say it, almost a positive for Daniel Frost.
Yeah, I think it actually is for him. He definitely needed, was he ready to move up to Lights? Sure. He's perfectly talented enough to do it. But this is going to give him, he's probably going to have to spend about the same amount of money, and he's going to get to do 2 series. And he's got a chance to win a scholarship in both, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how he ends up doing. It'll be, it's great for the Indy Pro 2000 grid to have another driver that's a race winner come back.
Speaking of Andretti Autosport, of course, they have their NTT IndyCar Series team with 4 great drivers. They don't actually go away from junior motorsports because they are running in that FRA program. Belardi Auto Racing, Steve, a little bit different. I spoke with Brian Belardi earlier today, and they're taking a hiatus essentially from this shortened opportunity of the 3-4 months that we will have of racing. Brian, of course, one of the primary thing he was worried about was his staff. Right. Both he and John Bruner wanted to make sure the staff was going to be okay, being told that all those guys have found gigs at other teams, and they've all, when they got those gigs, they were, they told those teams, hey, the plan is to go back to Belardi after the season's over, because Brian said they're dialed in, the cars are ready, and they're going to go off-season testing as soon as possible.
Yeah, Brian's one of those guys. You look at their crew. They've been with Brian a long time, and they're very loyal and to Brian and John. It's good to see people try and take care of their crew. It's tough though, right? Like he had 2 good drivers, and it was going to be a good, interesting season for him. He wanted to have a big comeback, but they'll come back stronger. If I know Brian, he's a competitor, strong. He's a very competitive person, so he's going to want to come back and be better. And I suspect they'll put together an awfully good test program for their drivers too.
So they were planning on running Rasmus Lindh, the Swedish driver, finished second in the last 2 years, second in USF 2000, second in Indy Pro 2000, almost won the championship last year, actually, in Indy Pro. Toby Sowery as well. Did you get a chance to talk to either of those guys? I did, but did you get a chance to talk to them?
I haven't talked to either of them. I knew Rasmus wasn't. I know the last time I talked to him, they weren't thinking they were going to run anything this year, maybe take a season off. So, I get it. It's understandable. I feel bad for him because they stayed here after, St. Pete for the last 4 months. They sort of moved up here to Indy with him and his dad. And, he's been around and working out and spending a lot of time with Belardi, with the team, which is great. But now I think he's headed back to Sweden for a little bit. And, I know he probably will do a lot of karting over there, and I'm going to guess he'll get into cars of some sort over there just because he's too good not to.
I actually, on ekartingnews.com on our face-to-face show, we had Will Power and Billy Vincent on, and they run the Will Power kart program because Will started his own karting program as well. And they've had a couple of different drivers jump behind the wheel of their cars, Chase Jones being one of them, but a couple of guys have been driving the kart at Whiteland down in Indianapolis there. And I told Billy, I said, listen, you know what? There's a karting guy from Sweden, obviously, because Billy obviously knew Marcus Ericsson because Billy works with Aero McLaren Racing SP. Rasmus Lint finished 5th in the World Championships a couple of years ago in the primary OK category. So I told him, I said, you got this unbelievable, talented, world-class karter hanging out in Indianapolis. So they finally got connected, he and Chris Wheeler, because Chris is working with them as well. Good. Now, they were going to run this weekend. I think Rasmus may have to go home, like you said, to Sweden. But when he gets back, they're planning on doing a bunch of karting. So I would expect to see some race wins out of Rasmus Lint in that Will Power kart before it's all over. Yeah,
that's actually kind of a really cool story, right? Like it's good to see Billy and Will giving back too to the karting. I know they're both very passionate about the junior drivers, and I think that's really good to see.
And they've got a connection with Pabst Racing, Augie Pabst as well.
Oh yeah. Billy and Augie are longtime friends, and it's actually really cool to see, and it's nice to see IndyCar guys kind of coming back and going to their roots. And don't get me wrong, Will's going to want to make money at it, but but it's also a good way for him to keep his foot in the door for what he's going to do when he retires too.
Yeah, right? It's the same with Billy. They're thinking about what they're going to do when they want to have that passion project to go to. Right. When they're done. The other driver, of course, for Belardi Auto Racing was going to be Toby Sowery. Again, I messaged with Toby, and right now he's worried about budget as well, right? You don't want to blow the support you may have on something else. You can come back next year. He told me, he goes, listen, if you hear of any coaching opportunities back in the U.S., let me know. I'll fly back over. So I think he'd like to be here. He'd like to be in the U.S. He'd like to be doing some coaching with some drivers. So if anybody is looking for a coach for their young driver, karting or cars, whatever it may be, Toby Sowery is obviously available. Yeah, and Toby's he's awfully good at he's the guy kind of driver you want coaching your kid because he understands the technical side of the sport very well. His feedback has always been excellent. He'll help your driver just become better at working with their engineer and knowing exactly what to communicate to the engineer. Steve, give us the update on HMD Motorsports. That's one of the teams that really has elected to make a pretty monumental shift in terms of making sure they stay racing. Talk about what's going on with HMD. Yeah, so those guys, HMD, we're going to run 3 cars this year. It was going to be David Malukas, Santi Urrutia, and Antonio Saravelli. And you're going to see that team move over to Formula Regional Americas with 2 cars for Malukas and Urrutia. And then Saravelli's also moving over to that series with Jay Howard Racing. So, that's Formula Regional Americas. I think we've got 4, not cast-offs, but refugees from defectors. Yes, defectors, refugees from Indy Lights. Well, and here's the thing. So I had a couple of people message me, and they said something to the effect of, "Hey, why isn't HMD why won't they just go Indy Pro 2000 racing?" I said, well, it's almost going a different direction to a certain extent because David Malukas already ran there. Obviously, they had a team at that point. Yep. Santi Urrutia won the championship. Right. And what's he going to do? Is he going to win another championship to go back to Indy Lights? I guess so. But I think he would probably like to potentially move. If they win there, he'll win a scholarship to come back. I think for Santi, he probably wouldn't have wanted to go back to Indy Pro 2000 again. No, and I know they had just sold that equipment too. I forgot about that. Just sold, like they had 2 Indy Pro 2000 cars, and they had all the equipment, and they just sold it. So it's just at this point, you've got to look at what you can get for your money, and Formula Regional Americas is just that little bit cheaper price point right now. That it kind of made some sense, and then you've got the scholarship is a full year of Indy Lights, right? So it's going to be, that's a nice scholarship. And you've got, David and Santi should both be contenders along with Daniel and right. Like Antonio, I expect to do very well there. And then you've also got Victor Fransoni running over there. Right. So sure enough. It's going to be that will be an entertaining
entertaining championship to watch too.
I spoke with Michael Duncalf from Exclusive Autosport this morning as well. Of course, sad for him because they had just launched the Indy Lights program. We're at St. Petersburg, first practice. Michael's up on the wall beaming. Got my new team. Yeah, we do one session and we're done. So I did speak with Nikita Lastoshkin as well. Nikita Lastoshkin.
Yes,
I'm still working on it.
I think that's right. I know.
Nikita Lastoshkin. Yes. So Nikita, I think he's just going to focus on work. He's a driving instructor, so he's going to be still driving and focusing on that all year. The plan is to come back with Exclusive Autosports next year, of course, testing in the offseason, and then back for 2021. But, of course, it's not like Michael Duncalf has any time to rest at all with an F1600 team, a USF 2000 team, and an Indy Pro 2000 team. This guy's going to be busy as it is. But I'd have to say it would suck for him to have that car parked in the shop.
I know. I've talked to him a couple times, and I know he's bummed that he's not running. He had, Nikita's lined up, and then it sounded like he might have had somebody lined up for a lot of other races. So he was pretty excited about getting into Indy Lights, and I think Michael's the kind of guy that I think you'll down the road see him in IndyCar. Just that's kind of the way he looks forward and wants to build that into a world-class team, and it just this puts it a year later, but I think it'll still eventually happen for him. But it'll be interesting to see. They'll be able to test a little bit in the off season as well. So, which as a new team, getting more miles isn't the worst thing. I know they they would have liked to had more miles going into St. Pete, so now they'll have a chance to do that.
Well, I'm talking to Michael too. They've been in contact with a lot more families, so we may see some more opportunities for more people to drive the car. It almost gives them a time to kind of settle in and have more drivers. Now, how much I work hard on trying to make sure I get the people's names right. So of course I got Nikita's name right. Who chimes in? Alicia Hodat.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Slamming me.
There you go.
Like, really? Come on. I think she's out grocery shopping right now. Whatever it was. Wherever she is, she's taking the opportunity to slam me for screwing up Nikita's name. But listen, to my credit, I said his name for 4 years as Lastoshkin. He never told me.
It drives me. I won't lie. It drives me nuts when you ask these kids how to pronounce their name and they don't really tell you, and then you find out you're getting it wrong. I'm like, oh well, if you just tell me, right? Like they're like, I don't care, and I'm like, I get it because my name's not always easy.
And Elaine's got it right. Nikita Lastoshkin. Good Zoom type.
Nice. Exactly.
All right, let's wrap things up. Juncos Racing. Obviously, we'll see them in the Indy Pro 2000 category with 3 drivers. One of the big stories, Steve, coming through the offseason into St. Petersburg was no drivers for two-time with the Dallara, the new car, 2-time series champions.
Yeah, it's a little surprising that Ricardo couldn't find drivers, but we were talking earlier about being, a professional race team, and this is your only thing, and Ricardo has to get full budget for when he runs, deals. Right? Yeah. Like there's no deals, and there's a lot of other team owners that have that ability to they're not giving away rides, but even if you're saving a little bit of money, it helps the driver and their sponsors. So it's tough, right? Like you're right. They've won 2 championships. He's obviously very good at running an Indy Lights team, but and I know they had a couple people come close, but it just never worked out.
Well, you see what they did last year with Rinus VK as well. They've won titles with Spencer Pigot and Kyle Kaiser. They put Kaiser on the show at the 500, and then ran a rookie head to head against another rookie. In the previous championship car. So they obviously can get the job done. I messaged a little bit with Ricardo earlier today, and he says that there's not a lot going on right now. I think he believes, Steve, and you can give me your input on this. He kind of believes that right now we're kind of in a holding pattern for a lot of drivers. In Indy Lights. We talked about those. I'll focus on 2021 right now, right? There's a lot of drivers I think are in the same place where they're not going to make a move on trying to set up a testing program until we get maybe further into September.
I agree. And that's when I've talked to him, and that's kind of the plan, just kind of see. And, he it hurts for him because he's been able to get some South American drivers come on. And right now the South American economy, it's not that the South American economy is that bad. The American dollar versus the South American currencies, it's brutal. Like it is. I've talked to a couple of Brazilians about this, where it's like, 2 years ago, it was $1.50, and now it's double that, right? And it's like, to them, that's real money, right? Like it doesn't matter what.
It is. It's straight up,
right? It's like if it's think it's Brazilian real. I'd have to look up what the exchange rate is, but that's why we haven't seen as many South American drivers lately, is because the exchange rate is it's awful.
It's the same with Canada down to the US as well.
Yeah.
It's 30%. It's 30% more.
Right. And even in Europe, it's 15 to 20% different than what it was 2 years ago. Well, that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a massive difference. Having a good, strong American dollar is a good thing, but it does hurt these Road to Indy teams because its drivers don't. You're spending the same money in my mind. Like exchange rate sucks, but it's all about appearances, right? And it looks like it's more expensive. It's like, oh crap.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
The parent goes, well, I can spend this here or this here.
That's it.
Yeah.
Let's move to Indy Pro 2000. Again, I think we all hope that if Lights was going to shut down, we would have seen some more teams come back. We didn't see as many guys come back as we would have hoped. I think really only probably one driver, potentially two drivers, but adding to the program. But I think we're still looking at a decent field of drivers for the first weekend at least. They're going to be testing on Monday, so I don't think we've mentioned that earlier, but they are testing on Monday at Mid-Ohio. There's going to be both USF 2000 and Indy Pro 2000, the official test, and then of course a week and a half later we're at Road America. Shout out to Adrian Ricard tuning in from England. We haven't seen Adrian in many years.
He's late there, isn't it? I guess it's 9 o'clock.
9:30.
Yeah,
he's having a beer probably right now.
Yeah,
he's good.
Probably. Hi, Adrian.
Do you want to get started, Steve, with Pabst Racing? What are you hearing from Hunter and Colin?
I know they're both here, and I know they're both planning on running. And I know they did a test I've seen them testing a couple of different places. At La Crosse, maybe on the oval. They've been at Mid-Ohio. I know they'll be at the other Mid-Ohio test. So, those guys they've been, once they could get the guys back in the shop, Augie could get his guys back in the shop. They've been testing. So
Road America. Most drivers have tested. Now that we get into, we're talking about actual testing. Most of the teams, as you know, a test at Road America and a test at Mid-Ohio already.
Yeah. So most everybody's been testing, and it'll be interesting. And there's another team that having a couple extra tests isn't the worst thing in the world. As a new, I expect them to get a handle on that car very quickly, but. Having a couple extra days of testing for the engineers, for Tony's and Augie and that crew isn't the worst thing in the world. And it gives and the drivers, right, get a couple more days of running in that car. So, for the rookie drivers in Indy Pro 2000, the break hasn't been the worst thing in the world for them. They're going to get a lot more test days in.
One of the other things interesting, you brought up La Crosse. One of the races that didn't get the chop when moving was the night before the 500 or the Carb Day Classic, whatever we're going to be calling. I think it's Friday night, so it's the Carb Day Classic now. Yeah. It'll move to August. That's the race at Lucas Oil Raceway, the Freedom 75 and the Freedom 90. And one of the tracks that a lot of guys like to test on, especially those located maybe up in the Illinois area, Wisconsin, is La Crosse up in Wisconsin. Yeah. I think it's a bit flatter. I don't think it's quite as banked as Lucas Oil, but I saw a number of teams were there. Legacy Autosport was there. Pabst was there. Kaminsky actually drove the PM18 there. I confirmed that with them. Exclusive Autosport was there as well. I think Christian Brooks was rolling around there as well. So.
That's a good spot to test for those guys. You'll see some down in Memphis. I haven't seen anybody down there yet. But,
that's true, Memphis.
Bunch teams test at Memphis Motorsport Park on the oval there. But, it's good to see that event remain. It'll be I think that'll be a big event. It's, we've got pavement midgets and pavement sprint cars back there for the first time in a while, too. So it'll be, we've had the Silver Crown cars, but now we've got pavement midgets, pavement sprint cars back with the Indy Pro 2000, and if you're an open wheel fan, man, it doesn't get there. Four open wheel races that night, right? Like that's awesome.
That's kind of my world crisscrossing because I'm a stock car guy, oval guy as well. I watched the entire. I signed up for Flow Racing to watch the entire Indiana Midget Week, and I love the Chili Bowl, all that stuff. To be able to have them all come together, it's a great deal. D-Force Racing as well. I actually messaged with David Martinez a bit, Steve. It seems like all four of their drivers. Corey Enders, Parker Thompson, Manuel Suleiman, and Moises de Oliveira will be at the test at Mid-Ohio and racing at Road America. That is, I think the Manuel still has to get into the U.S. I think he's still in Mexico right now. So,
yeah, that's the one thing I worry about is getting drivers into the country. It's definitely not easy. I hopefully with some of the stuff that's gone on with the IndyCar guys, it's opened things up a little bit. But there's Canadian guys and. The Canadian land border is closed, but you can fly, and I think it's similar to Mexico too. There's the land borders are closed, but the you can fly, but I know it's not easy. I know a couple people have come back or come to the U.S. from Canada, and they're they don't make it easy for you. They definitely ask a lot of questions. So have all your ducks in a row.
I spoke with Parker Thompson a little bit too earlier today, and he's really excited about the new season. He said that Team D-Force Racing has made some off-season acquisitions in terms of staff, and he's really happy with where they are right now.
Yeah, I know they. I think I can't remember his name, and I'm not going to try and butcher it. From Juncos, one of the engineers from their Indy Pro 2000 program is there now, and I know they brought on Jonathan Jorge as a driver coach, and running 4 cars. It's going to be interesting to see how far they can move ahead on the grid. Right, they've shown some potential, but I think now, I think with the 4 cars and with someone like Parker there to kind of guide what direction they go, it could be really interesting to see, because you've got Corey and Moises with a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Right. And they've shown the pace, It just, I think sometimes the cars haven't been quite as fast, but both guys have shown that they have the pace. So, it'll be an interesting look. And Manuel's quick too. So, that if you're looking for a sleeper Indy Pro 2000 team, that's probably the one. They haven't won a championship or won any races, but it wouldn't shock me to see them on the podium a lot this year.
Yeah, I agree. Now, here's the thing. Let's look at the contrast, right? 4 drivers at D-Force Racing, all that input, all that feedback. And then we move over to Exclusive Autosport with Braden Neves.
Braden Neves, I know.
But Braden Neves is Braden Neves, right? We know what he's such a technical driver in terms of just the racecraft itself, knowing the race car. He's an intellectual young man, really able to talk the talk and understand and connect with the engineer. Obviously, the fastest driver in that single session we had at St. Petersburg by a half a second. He was gutted that the season had to go on lockdown for 4 months because I think he was excited. But the USF 2000 reigning champion, I think he's really going to be one to watch this year.
Yeah, I do too. He's an impressive driver, and like you said, he's obviously a very intelligent young man. He's a well-spoken young man, and I think he's one that people need to get to know because as an IndyCar fan, he's someone you're going to hear about for a while. He's got some good support out of Ohio, some good background support from Mike Shank, and he's part of that program, and he's an awfully good young man. I hate to say I'm old, so he's young, but he's very mature. But he's very mature.
You're at least twice as old as him. I'm twice as old as he is. Yeah, we can say that, right?
That's true. But yeah, I expect a lot out of him this year. But you said 1 car, it's not, in some ways that's good. The team can focus solely on giving him what he needs.
Yeah.
So, I think it'll be interesting to see, and they'll put all their it's going to be interesting. The Indy Pro 2000 Championship, it'll be fun.
It's going to be a barn burner, I think. I messaged with Brendan Puderbach as well from Fat Boy Racing. They're going to have Charles Finelli back out again, and excited to enjoy the program. And again, for me, I look at them as a throwback of what the Star Mazda Championship used to be in terms of the fact that when you had 40 drivers in Star Mazda, there was the guys up front, the top 20, whatever, top 15, who were really focused on trying to get better, trying to get themselves dialed in and move to maybe the Atlantic program or the Indy Lights program at that point back in the mid-2000s. And then there were like 20 guys that were there because they wanted to race against the best guys they could.
Yep.
And they wanted to experience that level of racing. Star Mazda used to race on the Sebring 12.
Oh, crazy, yeah.
Right? They used to race. So that we don't have a lot of that anymore. That's why I love Fat Boy Racing and Charles Finelli. They're here because they want high level of competition. They want a really good race car because let's be real, the Indy Pro 2000 is one of the best open wheel cars you can drive.
Yep.
And they want to be at events.
That's
I love the sport.
I do too, man. I wish, like I know you and I have talked about it before. I wish we had more people like Charles and Fat Boy. And, I know people go, well, he's not competitive. Why would you want him? He's entry fees and he's, buying tires from Cooper, and he's, spending money on his engine, and he's getting status parts. And the more cars you have, the less expensive it is for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the more entry fees Anderson Promotions and Dan collect, the more he can offer better prizes for the guys up front. So you want those bigger grids, especially at this, and that Indy Pro 2000, the Star Mazda level, it seems to be that perfect spot for the gentleman driver that wants to, race against the top competition. You had guys like Bob Kaminsky was another perfect example. Bob was a heck of a racer, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
And he didn't want to do anything else because he wanted to race with the kids and be competitive. And, is he going to run up front all the time? No, but he's good competition. And, and there's sometimes these guys can, they can help make a kid's budget a little less, like they did with Phil Dennis last year, right? Like
that's exactly right. Yep.
I'd love to see lots of that where you see, the gentleman driver, kick in a little bit and he gets coached from a younger guy, but he helps him with his budget.
Well, if you start people that have been around the sport long, if you start looking back at some of the teams like maybe Ken Erb's Velocity Motorsports, where you would have a couple of really fast masters drivers, expert drivers at that point we called them, and they would make sure they helped out some of the young guys because those were the guys that were bringing them, the input, which is you got to have that. That's for sure. Let's so let's go. We talked about Juncos Racing not having anybody for Indy Lights this year. Of course, they're going to keep working for 2021, but a pretty good lineup in terms of a rookie driver, a driver with a bit of experience, and a kid with more experience in their lineup for Indy Pro 2000.
Yeah, I messaged back and forth with Ricardo earlier today, and I think he's excited to get racing again. He's like, it's they have to be racing. That's it's a race team; they have to be racing. But yeah, with Artem Petrov, and then
Nate
Aranda, yeah. And then obviously Stingray Rob's coming back for another season of Indy Pro 2000. It'll be interesting to see. Stingray last year, the second half of last year was probably the best driver in that series, or at least close, right?
Very close.
He was competitive with Kyle Kirkwood, and I expect him to be really hungry this year. I know he really wants to win the series. And I think we keep forgetting that Stingray was 15 when he started, right? Like I think he's maybe 19 now. So, and he's definitely growing up too. And he's another one. He's a lot like Braden in some ways that he's very analytical and he thinks things through, and he's a smart driver. And I think you'll see him shine again even more this year, and especially with another season with Juncos. I know he really liked driving for Ricardo because Juncos is very good at driver development, right? Like it's very important to them, and he felt like they made him a better driver, and he hadn't had that in his career before. So another season is fantastic.
Well, what I think about Stingray, a couple of races he potentially could have won last year. On the pole at Portland, got taken out at the start. Yeah. On the pole, 1 point at Laguna Seca, got taken out, but was leading. And had a driver go off in front of him, put gravel on the track, and he went off the racetrack because of control of the car. I feel like Stingray is going to be that next kid that gets that first race win.
Yeah, I agree.
Off his back, and all of a sudden more race wins come.
Yeah. You're right. It's one of those. It could be a snowball where he gets going and he won't be able to stop him. And obviously, Juncos has won a lot of championships in that series, so it's not like they don't know what they're doing. So it's I expect them to. They almost won with Rasmus last year. They've won, I think, four or five driver championships in Indy Pro 2000. So I expect them to be right there. It's like we've talked about before. It's going to be an entertaining season.
Let's have a quick look at Turn 3 Motorsport. Of course, last year, Peter Dempsey and his crew coming in with Antoine Comeau. Antoine will be back this year. But as we've said, they were able to pick up another car, and now they're going to have, or they have the two cars. Now they're going to have Daniel Frost driving for them. You mentioned that's going to be a really interesting.
I think
pairing,
that's really interesting.
right?
Yeah, I do. I think it's fascinating. It'll be fun to watch and see how that ends up turning out, because I think Daniel's awfully talented, and he's a really nice young man, but he's I don't say he's shy, but he's not tentative, might not be the right word, but he probably needs to be just a little bit more aggressive. And there's nobody better to bring that out of you than Peter.
Yeah, I agree with that. Another team that is kind of forming up right now is BN Racing with Bryn Nuttall. Sabre Cook will be with them, kind of with Bennick, but with BN and Bryn. Not sure exactly how much of a budget or a program Sabre will have. I messaged briefly with her today. She actually had kind of a partial program put together. With Bennick for the season. Of course, this whole thing's kind of moved things around. We'll see how her sponsorship and her partnership and backing continues, but she will be at Road America, which is amazing because Sabre is a tremendous young woman and a great driver. Looking forward to see what she can do. And then Jacob Loomis. Steve, talk a little bit about that. Loomis just announcing joining with the team, a couple of weeks ago, right?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic for that team and for Jacob. He's such an interesting case, right? He hasn't done a full season really in anything, but when he's been here, he's been quick. So, and they did their family stuff. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
Last year, yeah. Yep. When they ran it as a family team, and they were on pace, right? Jacob was on pace, so I expect to be with a professional team, they'll be on pace. And we know what BN did in Indy Pro 2000 at Road America with David Malukas and Toby Sowery, where they were double winners and double podiums. And so I'd expect with Bryn there, those cars will be quick, very quick. So it'll be interesting to see what Sabre and I think, like you said, these drivers, the budget right now, we don't know, but if you can go to your backer, your partner, your sponsor, and Sabre can go and say, hey, I got 2 top 5s, or I got, a 4th and a 10th, or right. Like all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, I want to back, right. Yeah. Like it sucks that you need to perform to keep going, but sometimes that's the way it works, right? If you can show your backer that you've got the chance to, the ability to be competitive, they're going to want to keep backing you. And, someone like Sabre, we had the W Series decided to forego this season as well. And, she was set to return to that, and that was going to be a good, she was going to get finally, for the first time probably in her career, she's going to get the right amount of seat time this year. So it kind of sucks, but hopefully we'll see her quite a bit.
Indeed. Obviously, one of the almost fallout is the fact that RP Motorsport USA, I don't think, going to be coming back this season. I believe one of the cars has been leased out, so we're not going to see them. Obviously, throughout the Road to Indy iRacing E-Series, one of the guys that was super impressive was Philippe Dennis. Was able to win both championships. Obviously, an iRacing expert. He does a lot of coaching on iRacing. He's actually a coach as well at the Allenberg Racing School at Laguna Seca. Yeah. And speak with him today, it's not looking good for him to potentially get into anything. He was trying to work a deal with RP Motorsport. Doesn't have the budget right now. With everything kind of shaking around, it seems like he's taking a step back a bit and will focus potentially on Laguna Seca, maybe St. Petersburg to end the season.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing to do. It does. I think Phil's got a lot of talent, and he just, it's just getting in that right spot at the right time. And with RP, being based out of Italy, it's tough for them this year, right? Like it's pretty much undoable, right? Like it's with guys coming back and forth, and it's it doesn't make a lot of sense. So, it's good to see that one of their cars will get used, and I expect they'll be back. They seem to really enjoy racing here, and they were very competitive too. They were a lot of fun to have around, and extremely competitive group of guys. But yeah, it's tough, and like you said, we're probably going to see Phil with them at least to start the season, but. Yeah. Hopefully he'll be able to put something together towards the end of the season, and some, it's a good way to build momentum for the next year.
I sent a bunch of messages at this. I'm going to grab my phone real quick and see if anybody got back to me. Because how about you and I talk about Andretti Autosport? It's been a while. It's been a while since they've been in the Indy Pro 2000 level.
Yes.
Won a championship a couple years ago with some kid named Brabham.
Yeah, he wasn't too bad, right? How many wins did they get? Yeah,
right. Like 11. Was it 11 wins or something like that?
11 wins, yeah. And it's Michael wants to keep his guys employed, right? Like he had 3 or 4 crews of Indy Lights guys, so he wants to keep people employed, and that's it's a good way to keep people.
So they got a car. So they have a car. Let's put it that way. Andretti has a PM18.
Right.
You're hearing the same name I'm hearing. What do you think? Who do you hear driving that car?
I think it'll be a young Canadian driver that has been in Europe for a few years, Devlin DeFrancesco.
All right.
He was set to do F3, European F3 this year. And I just saw now, I haven't been able to get any confirmation, but I think that I saw this morning where his F3 team has replaced, he's another driver, got announced into his seat this morning.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, so that leads me to believe that he's either not racing or he's going to be in Indy Pro 2000. And they've been talking about it for a while. Like he'd come back over and checked out the series, and
he ran the E Series as well.
Yes, yeah, he did. And it's it makes sense to have him here. He's a good shoe, and is another one of those ones that I don't think he's been able to show his talent in Europe. We've talked about this before, where it just doesn't seem to be. I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to work out when Americans or Canadians go over there. Had very few, other than Rob Wickens. Has anybody really Nicholas Latifi has done well, but you have to have that top level budget to get that, to win over there. And right now, I think, running Andretti, and he's another one. His dad works hard, and being at Andretti, with partners, and it could work out really well for him down the road.
We'll see. Obviously that's an announcement we expect to see coming pretty soon, or potentially seeing somebody at the test on Monday. You can run, but you can't hide.
Yes, exactly.
Sooner or later, the test is going to come out. All right, let's move to USF 2000. We are rocking through this, the first edition of my Road to Indy Insider live here on Facebook. I'll put it up to YouTube as well, and then I'll take the audio and put it onto the Road to Indy Insider podcast stable as well. So lots of ways to consume the content here over the next couple of months. Steve, USF 2000 really not that much of a change. A couple of drivers potentially not coming, but otherwise everybody's locked and loaded, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty similar to what we saw, the same grid we saw at St. Pete. Like you said, there might be a couple changes, but I don't think there'll be a lot. I think Cape's going to have the same group of drivers. I think Pabst is going to have the same group of drivers. I think Dudu Barrichello got into the U.S. now. I think he's back in Orlando now. So I think that was a concern of getting him, coming back from Brazil. But I believe he's here. At least that's the last I've heard. So, that was probably
I'm scrolling to see if there's anything new.
It's one I was worried about. But I think, like you said, I think it's pretty similar to grid to what we were going to see. Like you said, we're going to see on Monday, but it'll be an entertaining series again. It's going to be.
There's a couple of drivers we're not going to see. I know that. I don't think that we're going to see Matias Ramirez or Manuel Cabrera, which is a shame. I think I would love to have seen both of those drivers back with us. Now, I talked to David Martinez, and he does say that there will be a new driver. The announcement's coming. A second driver for D-Force Racing alongside Kiko Porto. At least for the Mid-Ohio test and Road America. I don't know if it's going to be a full season, more of a kind of, hey, come and do some races with us ahead of 2021.
That's good. Yeah, and I don't know who that could be. I've got my ideas.
I asked, he wouldn't tell me.
Yeah, I've got some ideas, but I think has Nico Christodoulou run with them in Mexico? Hasn't he? F4.
Oh, he may have.
I think so. So that's
Steve.
one thing. I'm not going to say it's happening, right?
Connect the dots.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a connecting the dots thing, right? So, and he's a kid that I'd like to see. He's done well down there, and it'll be interesting to see. And I don't. I think we lost Jack Crawford, joined the Red Bull program, and he's over in Europe. He'd one I'd love to see come back and do some races. I know he won't leave the Red Bull program, but hopefully he gets a chance to race as much as he was supposed to over there. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting series. We'll see how many drivers. I think we'll have 18 cars.
I just did the countdown there, but probably 18 or 19. I think. Yeah. Matt Round-Garrido was a driver who hasn't tested. We mentioned talking about Indy Pro 2000. Really, the tests that everybody went to, the test at Road America. Yeah. And then the test at Mid-Ohio was one, of course, the one coming up on Monday. Matt has been over in England the whole time. I believe he's flying back this Friday to be able to be with the team at getting ready to go for that test. So that's one. I'm thinking 18 or 19. I think it's
that's where I am with that too. Yeah. It'll be it's going to be you're going to have Pabst and Cape, obviously, once again, probably fighting. And it'll be there's some driver. It'll be interesting to see who comes out of the fray at a place like Cape and a place like Pabst, right? Like who's going to be the one that becomes their number one driver.
And I think you throw more people. Of course, Cape and Pabst have been they've been battling for Team of the Year, right?
Right.
But then you got to remember Christian Rasmussen won a couple of races last year and became one of the strongest guys at the end of the season for Shea Howard Driver Development. I have a feeling he is going to be a championship right out of the gate. And then you got a couple of rookies at Exclusive Autosport. I'm telling you, Christian Brooks and Prescott Campbell. Man, I really believe they're going to be good. I do.
Yeah, I do too. That's two. Yeah, you're right. Those two are, they're probably flying under the radar right now, but they're both good shoes, and they're both good kids too. It's a strong series right now. There's a lot of good drivers, right? Like there's no really, there's probably out of that 18 or 19, there's probably 10, 11 guys who can win races.
That's it. Yeah.
Right. And that's huge, right? Like that means the championship probably won't be settled early. That series is one we've had a few years where, we've had one guy dominate. I don't think you'll see that this year.
Hey, listen, we've got some expert advice coming in here. Kyle Kirkwood thinks Rasmussen will be one to beat for sure. I think he's going to be strong.
I don't disagree. I do not disagree, Kyle. It's
Kyle's on it.
Yeah, he was so competitive last year, and I think they were disappointed with how they started the season, but once they got it figured out, right? It was their first year with that car, and his first year in that series, and once they got it figured out, man, they were dialed in. They were on it.
Here's something I find interesting, especially with the younger drivers, Steve, is the fact that normally we had the longer season, right? And there's a big gap. We'd run St. Petersburg, then we'd have maybe one race, or maybe that big gap to the Grand Prix weekend. I always use Road America in the middle as that kind of time where the rookie drivers have got they got their stuff. They've got their stuff together. They figured it out. They're more comfortable. They're not so nervous like they were at St. Pete. They come and attack at Road America. What do you do when you take 18 races or however many were like actual race and jam them in like this? Triple header weekends, man. If a guy comes to a track and he's uncomfortable, you could be lost for the entire weekend. Yeah. But if you get to a track and you're nailing it, you can walk away with 3 podiums or 3 race wins.
Right. It is. Yeah. And it's, it's got a lot of pressure on the kids, which is good. I think as far as making them grow up as drivers, there's going to be nothing better than the tight, compressed schedule, right? Like they're going to be on track a lot in a short period of time. And it'll be interesting to see, right? They're going to have a lot of time, 3 races, like you said, at certain places, right? And that's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds, because, you've seen, we always said Mid-Ohio was kind of that place, right? Because that's where USF always had 3 races there. And it was kind of that place where that championship always ended up being decided.
Always. That's right.
Always. And, we're going back there again with 3 races, but it's earlier, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays in, what road or how Mid-Ohio plays into it.
Let's have a look at that schedule, folks. So there it is for you. We're getting started on July 9th and 10th. We go to Road America for a doubleheader. And then as Steve said, what normally was kind of that championship run, that battle, we're going to go back-to-back at Mid-Ohio, July the 29th and 30th. Steve, I think that's the Wednesday, Thursday race, correct?
Yes.
And then August the 7th to 9th is the straight-up IndyCar weekend, doubleheader with IndyCar.
It is. Yep.
And then the Friday night race at Lucas Oil Raceway on the Oval, the Freedom 75 and the Freedom 90. Yep. And then we go to Gateway, and that's just Indy Pro 2000s. I'm going to be sad to be there and not have Indy Lights.
I know. Yeah, that is a good point. It's that's a fun weekend.
It is.
And the Indy Lights cars race really well at that track.
Yeah. And again, another standalone event on September 3rd and 4th. I believe that's the Thursday, Friday again, I think.
It is, yep.
At the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And then we're back into the IndyCar schedule with Portland on September 11th to 13th. The WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca on September 18th to 20th. And Steve, we cap it all off with St. Petersburg at the end of October. St. Petersburg as the opener. Always kind of scary for young drivers, right? The rookie drivers are always so nervous. All those rookies now are going to be full of confidence, full of piss and vinegar. We're going to the season finale. I'm going to go.
It's always a good week. It's always the racing is always good, right? Yeah. So I think it could be fantastic.
But the finale, like who do you?
Oh, I know.
Who do you lean towards? Who are the guys that have been really good at their? Braden Eves was able to win 2 races there. Parker Thompson dominated the action last year with Able Motorsports in that category. I just kind of go back to guys that have been strong at St. Petersburg. What's it going to be like when they get there for the finale? That's going to be where we crown the champions. Right.
And like Pabst has been very good there in USF 2000. Right. And, that's actually one of those tracks where Cape was always good. And like you said, Braden won twice, but Pabst has always been fast there. So it's going to be interesting to see, and obviously it was last year where Rasmussen and Jay Howard Driver Development weren't quite in tune at that event. So did they go back there worried that, oh crap, we finished our season somewhere where we didn't, we weren't as quick? And
didn't Christian finish
quick?
Wasn't Christian right behind Darren Keene though in that first race when Darren spun it?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So they did. Maybe it was the natural train road courses early where they struggled then.
I think you're right. Yeah.
They did struggle with some speed early, but Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That's a good place to finish the season. That's
It's a really good place to fit. It'll be interesting. And well, there'll be those that have a bit of budget left, and those that'll be at the end of our bank accounts that will be thinking about not wrecking cars, or maybe they don't think about wrecking cars. Maybe it's I'll do anything, and I got 6 months to pay the bill.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Don't Rob. You're scaring the owners.
I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that.
You're scaring the owners.
Make sure you buy insurance for St. Petersburg.
Yes.
Well, listen, Steve, I appreciate you joining me here, the initial edition of the Insider. You and I talked about doing some of these, maybe not so much this stuff, but maybe some Facebook Lives or whatever from trackside, right?
Yeah, I think that'd be fun. Just quick, 15, 20-minute wrap up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Maybe try and get a couple drivers on with us and just chat about what happened on track during the day.
In years past, I've had the podcast that we've done, the kind of breakdown podcast. We're going to do that here. I'll bring some drivers on as well. We'll be able to leverage just to have more interviews with some drivers and stuff when I get back to the computer after traveling home, or potentially at the airport or whatever it may be. But Steve, I appreciate it, man. It's about time. It's literally going to be almost 4 months.
Yeah, I'm ready to get it. A lot of people, they don't like traveling. I'm desperately miss traveling right now. I love traveling. I love the adventure of it, and it's I miss it.
I'm dying for it, man. I cannot wait to get to the racetrack. And of course, as we said, hey, we're talking about traveling. First race, Road America. It's brats.
Yeah, exactly.
It's brats.
Exactly.
It's spotted cow. Man, I can't wait.
Brown bear wings.
And the brown bear wings. Now let's cap off with this. One of the things, of course, the Road to Indy sent out a email to everybody. There is going to be stringent social distancing, wear a mask. I'll be getting on the phone with Tammy Valkoski tomorrow to talk about how we're going to be doing the podium. It's everything we're going to be doing is going to be social. There won't be any hospitality for sponsors. Right. There's everything's being done to the nth degree. Of course, I think all the fall down from IndyCar, because Mid Ohio's
better safe than sorry, right?
Mid Ohio's racing this weekend, the SVRA event. They've got Trans Am's there, F3 and F4. They're all there, and it's open to fans. But I think IndyCar, knowing that they're trying to make things happen for the 500 and everything they're doing, they're making sure there are no issues at all when it comes to having any kind of COVID-19 in the paddock. Yeah,
no, you can't. You don't want to be that first series that causes the entire racing season to get shut down again. So, and you've got to look at what NASCAR's done on the COVID side of things, and they've had a couple at shop guys test, but considering how much they've been on the road and racing, it's been good to see that they've been able to continue with that. I wasn't sure how it would go, but it's been great to see they try very hard to social distance. If they don't, they've got the masks on, which I think you need to keep doing.
Hey, we just need to go racing, because once we get the Road America event, then we can start looking down the road to the next race at Mid Ohio. It's Mid Ohio, right? Yeah, Mid Ohio.
Yeah, we get another month off, right? We get going and then we get a month off. It's like IndyCar was the same, right? Now, once we get going in IndyCar, we're going. It's
a couple of weeks for sure. We have at least 2 weekends off. Then we're back to that midweek race, and then away we go. But we folks, I hope you're excited as we are, because we can't wait to get back to the track. This has been a great edition of the Insider Live. Thank you so much for joining us, Steve. Thanks again for joining me, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right. We'll talk to Steve a little later, folks. So once again, thank you so much. I do appreciate it. This will be on YouTube. I'll make sure it goes on the Podbean as a podcast as well. I appreciate you joining us, folks. Thank you so much. Bye for now, and book it.